Rose.
Well, when Susan L was talking about Wilfred Owen, I thought, I'm sure I've got one of Wilfred's poems in here because, like you, Susan, he's again a poet that means a lot to me. And on page 9, I've got Wilfred Owen, Anthem for Doomed Youth. And I sort of write it in by hand. And it's important that it's a beautiful book. So this is valuable to me.
Lovely. Diana.
This is a Yorkshire Tykes motto, which I'll read out when I have a moment in my best Yorkshire accent. Very well known. What does it say?
Go on, do it then.
Do it now?
Yeah.
Okay. It says, see all, hear all, say not, eat all, sup all, pay not. And if thou ever does out for nought, all us do it for the sen.
That's lovely. Okay, Anne. This is a typewritten document that I discovered in 1995. I was adopted when I was 6 weeks old, and I've never wanted to find my parents, but I understand completely how some people feel there's a missing link. At age 55, a year in 1995, the year before we came to England, I didn't know this existed. It is a document 2 pages long of my biological father, who dictated to somebody who's typewritten it, about what he, his best subjects were languages. My mother, I got 2 pages from her. She was 23 when I was born, and my father was 25, and he was born in Northern England.
Hey.
That's where I have always wanted to come to England, and I never knew why until 1995. I had this information, background of my biological father and my biological mother. My mother excelled in tennis, badminton, and golf. I've done them all and done very well in all 3. So they were both musical, and I play the piano. So I have this history now that I never knew even existed. So I was 55 when I got it. So that's special to me. Yay! This is, can you see that?
Yeah.
A Ring of Fire. And it was Theatre Terrific. And Theatre Terrific is the company of disabled actors that I was the artistic director of Theatre Terrific in Vancouver for 9 years. And Ring of Fire was one of the school's productions that we took on tour around British Columbia and presented with disabled and able-bodied actors. And Anne driving the van, she was the stage manager and actor, and she tells me that she was one of the baddies because she likes she likes playing baddies. And we performed to 23,000 children a year around British Columbia. So that was the second item I was going to speak about. Okay, Susan S.
Right, this was my dad. This was my dad's teddy. He was born in 1916, so it's over 100 years old. And for many years, it was wrapped up in newspaper in the cupboard under the stairs in my mum and dad's house. After he died in 1999, I unwrapped the newspaper and I noticed it had a big split under his chin, and it was like sawdust coming out. So I stitched it, I mended it. I mean, he's a bit shabby, but I don't want to part with him. And he sits in the bedroom on a chair now.
What's his name?
Do you know? And he's never had a name. I don't know what my dad called him actually, because I knew the bear was there in the cupboard under the stairs, but I never got to ask him what the name was. So perhaps I should give him a name.
Yeah.
Perhaps just Teddy.
Stair Bear. How about a Stair Bear?
Yeah, or Fred. Could be Fred Bear, because he's a bit threadbare.
Red Bear. Okay, Paula.
Right,
Oh, I missed Susan again. Susan. Wait a minute, I'm going back up to Susan. The other Susan.
I don't know if you can see this, but it's I don't know if you can see this. It's a magnifying glass,
Right.
and it's a 1-inch gauge. It folds thus, and that is the lens there, and that is the 1-inch by 1/2 inch gauge. You
Goodness.
see that?
Yeah.
It belonged to my maternal grandfather, Willie Dyson, who I used to live with, and he was worked in the woollen mill in Huddersfield. You either worked in the woollen mill or you worked in the engineering factories, and he was an overlooker in the woollen mill, and that was his. And he would use it to measure the gauge of the weaving to make sure it was accurate, and also to examine the cloth very, very closely to make sure that there were no flaws in it. And the focal, those of you who know me will remember I used to be an optician. The focal length of this is absolutely spot on for the magnification, for the distance between the lens and the gauge. So he died in 1960 when I was 10. He was very keen for me to pass my 11 plus, which I did, but he never got to see me pass my 11 plus because he died before I took it. But that's Willie Dyson's magnifier.
You can start a blooming historical museum.
Yes.
Artifacts.
Yeah, I can. That's it.
I've never seen anything like it.
Well,
Right.
there you go.
Okay, Paula, we're trying to get to Paula now.
Well, this is a quite an ordinary bottle of wine, which you can buy from little Aldi or Lidl for £5, £6. It's quite a decent bottle, and it's a Shiraz wine from Coonawarra in southeastern Australia. Now, I've always liked Shiraz wine. This is another sea story attached to this bottle of wine, because I researching into
Do a brief
Shiraz wine.
overview of it, Paula.
Yeah, well, researching into Shiraz wine on the internet, I came across a wine that was called Stentiford Shiraz, and my maiden name was Stentiford, so I thought, oh, this is interesting. And I found out that there was a Captain Henry Stentiford, who also came from Plymouth, the same as I did, who went to Australia in 1893 as a retired sea captain, and he started these Shiraz vineyards in this place called Coonawarra. And you can still get this wine that they produced in 1893, but it's £40 a bottle. So my daughter said, oh, I'll get you some if you want some of this Stentiford Shiraz, because it was your maiden name. And I said, not likely. I said, I'm not paying £40 for a bottle of wine when I can get one in Lidl for £5.
Isn't that interesting? The links you suddenly find that pop out, and yeah.
Yeah, so apparently, yeah, these wines, because it's very good. It's a very good wine growing region in that part of Australia, because the earth is known as terra rossa, which means red earth, and it's a very rich soil for growing wine. So the vines, some of the vines are still going strong now, out of the original vines that were planted in 1893.
We'll come to you for the wine tasting then, right?
Okay, you're on.
Okay, come to Sarah now.
Just had to grab something quickly because I'd only brought my pen, but then I saw this little lady. She's a bit floppy, but I saw this little lady on my shelf, and this is Awkward Annie. And she's called Awkward Annie because I self-taught myself how to crochet a couple of years ago, and I've really got quite addicted to it. But I like doing hats and scarves and blankets, and it's a pure pleasure. I just adore it. And then I got a bit big-headed at some point, and I thought, I'm going to make my little granddaughter a rag doll. So I started, and I the finished result is, I think she's beautiful,
Yeah.
but she was an absolute pain in the neck to make, because all these limbs you kind of do in a tube, so you're having to stuff a bit and then do another row, and I've got quite chunky fingers, and her face kept going wrong. She'd end up looking a bit mean, you know, and the hair, I think I did the hair about 7 times because it had to fit exactly onto her scalp. Anyway, I got her finished and I gave her to my little 2-year-old granddaughter, Florence. And the first thing she did was kind of, and I was like, no way, no way. That has to be treasured like an ornament. You're not actually allowed to play with her because of the effort that had gone in. It's the only time I always joke and say I can't make anything with a face because they always end up a bit mean looking. So she's my only success, and the number of people that have said, oh, can you make me one? I'm like, nope, I'm never ever making another. And that's why she's called Awkward Annie. But not long after she was finished, lockdown happened. And of course, Florence hasn't been coming anymore because I've got this weird blood thing and I can't be around anybody at the moment. So Awkward Annie just sits on the shelf in my junk room, and every time I come through, I just kind of see her sitting there. And I don't know what's worse, like not seeing Florence or the fact that Awkward Annie isn't getting played with, but she's safe.
For the time being.
I know how you feel, Sarah, because I crochet. And as you say, people have said, will you do another one? It can be so fiddly when you're doing things like that. You have my great sympathy. And
yeah, and the thing,
when I was a student, I taught all my house to crochet. That's many years ago. I taught 13 people how to crochet.
And they think they're being generous because go and pay for the wool. She probably only costs £2, but there's about 4 weeks work.
Yes, if you costed out your time, you'd never do another one.
No.
So we know where to come for crochet lessons.
Blankets, scarves and hats are a pleasure.
Okay, Ronnie, over to you.
Okay, well, as I showed you before, this is my book, and it's called The Brontes by the Sea. And I've been writing all my life. I made like my living out of writing for most of my life. I was a copywriter, I worked in PR, I wrote for all the women's magazines in England, and I did feature writing for Women's Journal. And anyway, writing is my thing, and I'm still writing. I've had quite a lot of short stories on the BBC. I've had 2 novels published in America. But anyway, that's me blowing my trumpet. This little book I wrote when I came to Yorkshire, because there was so much written about the Brontes, and I was always interested in the Brontes. But when I started reading more about them, I discovered that they'd come to the coast. The only one that didn't come to the coast was Emily. She stayed at home. But Anne was a governess in Scarborough. Charlotte went to Hornsey, Bridlington and Scarborough. So I did this little book, and it's pretty amateur. It was printed in a sort of amateur way, but I got someone to do the drawings. There's illustrations. And what I included was walks in the footsteps of the Brontes on the coast. So it includes 6 walks, and I drew the maps, and they're terrible. They're absolutely terrible. There's a puffin in one of them, and it doesn't look like a puffin, apparently. But it's still on sale. It's been selling for about 15 years. It used to be in the tourist offices. It's at the Haworth Parsonage. Who was it? Someone else was interested in the Brontes. Was it you, Rose? Yes. Yeah. But anyway, it's a good little book. And I gave it to a friend just before lockdown, a new friend in York. And she got in touch with me recently. She said, oh, I've been on quite a few of the walks with my friend. I said, well, why didn't you ask me? I've been nowhere. Nobody goes with me. I've been on my own for a year. And I was a bit pissed off that she'd taken my book and gone on walks with someone else. She could have invited me, you know. But anyway, if anybody wants it, it's online at lulu.com.
Yeah, that in. Yeah. So if you want to go walking, go with Rhonda. If you want to play badminton, play with Anne, or tennis or anything else.
Oh, no way, no way.
And
I'm
if,
so bad at ball games.
and if you want a rag doll, ask Susan.
Yeah, yes. If you want a crochet or a rag doll, and if you want no teddies, the other Susan's got tennies, and the other Susan's got a museum,
There's
My-
wine tasting.
and there's wine tasting. And Diana can do her Yorkshire accent, even though she's lived for years and
Can't say
years in
that.
Australia. Ah. Okay, are there any are there any last thoughts for the day, or shall I stop there?
Nice
I
to
was-
see everybody, and thank you for organising this.
Yeah.
Yes, we should do it.
Yeah,
We should do
it's
it.
great. It's great fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you. Thank you for organising it. And it's lovely to see you all, even though I'm sitting in Amsterdam.
And I live with two men, so it's just glorious to just spend this amount of time with a lovely group of women.
Ah.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay,
Can I tell-
smile and
can I tell
everybody
what I happen
wave.
on my
Yes,
read?
wait a minute, but we'll just
Can-
wave.